The story begins on a quiet evening, with the young male narrator, 24, navigating a situation he didn't anticipate. Perhaps he was taking a shortcut through a familiar neighborhood, following GPS directions gone slightly wrong, or escaping an unexpected downpour. His original intention had been simple: to reach home, run an errand, or visit a friend, yet somehow, he finds himself standing before the door of a woman, 42, whose presence will change the quiet rhythm of his life. When she opens the door, the first thing he notices is the warmth emanating from her space, a gentle, comforting heat that contrasts sharply with the chill outside. The soft glow of lamps, a faint scent of lavender and coffee, and the faint sound of classical music or rustling pages make the room feel alive, intimate yet safe. His eyes meet hers for the first time, confident, graceful, and slightly surprised to see him. There's an immediate sense of measured hospitality, a slight tilt of her head, a delicate smile, and a soft, welcoming tone in her voice. He can't help but notice how her presence fills the room without demanding it, a subtle balance of authority and vulnerability. Their first physical interaction is accidental, but charged with a quiet, magnetic tension. As he steps inside, his hand brushes hers while reaching for the same book on a low shelf. The touch is brief, almost imperceptible, but he feels the warmth of her skin, the slight tremor of surprise in her grip. She apologizes softly, her voice like a melody, and there's a moment of suspended awareness. Their eyes lock, and for a heartbeat, the room feels smaller, more intimate. The narrator is conscious of the gap between them, not just in age, but in experience, presence, and unspoken histories, yet he senses an unexpected invitation in the steadiness of her gaze. As they step further into the room, he notices details that begin to draw him in. The way her hair falls lightly over one shoulder, the subtle elegance of her posture as she gestures for him to take a seat, the careful way she moves around the space as if she is both aware of him and completely at ease. He notices the softness of her sweater, the quiet steadiness of her breathing, the delicate movement of her hands as she arranges books or pours tea. Every small motion conveys confidence, warmth, and a hint of vulnerability, a combination that both intrigues and unsettles him. Internally, the narrator oscillates between hesitation and fascination. He is keenly aware that he wasn't supposed to be here, that perhaps the circumstances are unusual, yet there's a magnetic pull that makes him linger. He senses that she, too, has registered this, a brief flicker of curiosity in her eyes, the way her lips press together before she offers him a seat, a gentle, wordless acknowledgement that his presence, though unexpected, is permitted. By the end of this scene, the audience should feel the subtle connection forming, not romantic yet, but charged with potential. The tension is quiet, slow-burning, and layered, their proximity, the accidental touches, and the shared awareness of each other's presence set the emotional tone for the story. After the initial, accidental encounter, the young male narrator, 24, finds himself lingering at the woman's, 42, doorstep not out of intention, but circumstance. Perhaps the rain hasn't stopped, or he's unable to return home immediately, or some unexpected situation prolongs his presence. At first, there's a mutual, unspoken hesitation. He feels guilty for intruding, while she hesitates, balancing politeness with caution. But slowly, she decides to let him stay. This moment marks a subtle yet profound shift. She is offering him not just shelter, but permission to exist in her private space, a rare and intimate gesture. As he steps further inside, the warmth of the room envelopes him more fully than before. The soft glow of lamps casts gentle shadows along the walls, accentuating the quiet charm of her space. He notices how everything is meticulously arranged, yet not in a way that feels rigid. There's a lived-in comfort, a subtle elegance. The faint scent of lavender lingers, mixed with the aroma of brewing tea, a sensory invitation that puts him slightly at ease. Their interaction is calm, measured, and yet subtly charged. She gestures for him to sit near her, perhaps on a low sofa or a sturdy wooden chair beside her. As he takes his seat, he becomes acutely aware of the warmth radiating from her presence. It isn't just physical, it's an emotional steadiness, a quiet reassurance that contrasts with the turmoil of his inner thoughts. When she sits near him, the air between them feels charged in a gentle, unspoken way. Their proximity is natural, almost casual, but each subtle movement, a shift in posture, a brush of her hand as she hands him a cup of tea, carries layers of meaning. As they begin talking, the conversation is soft, understated, yet revealing. She shares small anecdotes, glimpses of her life and routines, never forcing intimacy but allowing it to grow. He listens attentively, noticing the way her eyes light up when speaking, the soft modulation of her voice, the slight hesitations that hint at vulnerabilities she rarely exposes. Every small detail, the tilt of her head, the way her fingers trace the rim of the cup, the delicate brush of her hand against his forearm, becomes a conduit for unspoken connection. Internally, the narrator feels a growing sense of comfort, mingled with fascination. He is aware of the age gap, of societal expectations, yet those thoughts are overpowered by the quiet magnetism of her presence. There's an emerging trust, both tentative and profound. She allows him to stay, and in doing so, opens a door to deeper emotional resonance. He realizes that this isn't simply about shelter or courtesy, it is a first step towards something more significant, something neither of them fully understands yet. By the end of this part, the audience should feel the slow blossoming of trust and emotional intimacy. The tension remains gentle, unspoken, and layered. Every glance, touch, and word carries weight, hinting at the subtle pull between them. Their connection is not yet romantic, but the groundwork for emotional closeness, and eventual attraction, is being laid with warmth, care, and a measured vulnerability. After the initial moments of permission and tentative trust, the young male narrator, 24, settles into an unplanned rhythm with the woman, 42. Days or perhaps a week pass, and what was once awkward and tentative becomes a quiet routine, almost effortless in its familiarity. There's no overt declaration of feelings yet, but the way they share space begins to carry emotional weight. It's the slow, almost imperceptible accumulation of small gestures that deepen the connection between them. Their days begin to take on a predictable cadence. Perhaps they start the morning together. He pours coffee while she arranges breakfast, or she hums softly while flipping through papers at the table, and he watches, quietly mesmerized. He notices the way sunlight catches the highlights in her hair, how her hands move gracefully yet efficiently as she completes mundane tasks. The comfort of shared silence becomes as significant as conversation, the unspoken understanding that neither presence feels intrusive. Small, sensory moments of physical connection pepper these routines. When he reaches for a plate she's holding, their fingers brush, lingering just long enough to make him aware of warmth and texture. She may rest her hand lightly on his forearm as she guides him past the cluttered corner, or he may adjust the cushion near her as she sits, noticing the slight warmth that remains after he's touched it. These subtle gestures are never forced. They're fluid, natural, and laden with a quiet intimacy that neither fully articulates. The narrator begins to notice details that reveal her complexity and humanity. The soft laugh that escapes her when she's amused, the slight frown in her brow when she's absorbed in thought, the way she unconsciously taps her fingers when waiting, all these tiny, almost inconsequential behaviors begin to draw him closer emotionally. He feels protective, fascinated, and quietly grateful for the chance to witness these moments. Likewise, she begins to show him small courtesies that signal trust. She makes space for him to work, offers him her favorite seat without hesitation, or quietly checks in to see if he's comfortable. Internally, he wrestles with admiration, caution, and the unspoken pull of affection. He's aware of the age gap, aware of how unconventional the situation is, yet the growing comfort and familiarity makes it impossible to ignore the emotional significance of their interactions. Their connection is no longer accidental, it's deliberate, nurtured through shared routines, eye contact, and gestures of care. By the end of this part, the audience should sense the slow burn progression from mere acquaintance to emotional attachment. The tension is subtle but palpable. Each glance, each accidental touch, each shared silence reinforces the deepening intimacy. The stage is set for more overt emotional vulnerability, but for now, the power of routine, of consistent, gentle presence, is enough to bind them in quiet, human connection. By now, the young male narrator, 24, has settled into the woman's, 42, presence with surprising comfort. Their quiet routine has created a space of familiarity, where silence can be shared as easily as conversation. Yet beneath the surface, each carries hesitations and personal histories. In this part, she allows herself to show a sliver of vulnerability, inviting him closer to the emotional side of her world. The setting is intimate but casual. Perhaps they're sitting across from each other at a small wooden table, tea steaming gently in porcelain cups, or sharing a quiet evening by a softly lit living room. She begins to talk about something personal, a past heartbreak, lingering loneliness, or the pressures of her career. Her voice is soft, deliberate, and tinged with restraint, revealing a layer of herself she rarely shares. He notices subtle cues. Her fingers fidget lightly with the edge of her sleeve, a faint tremor in her voice, the way her shoulders slump just slightly, as if letting go of the weight of composure. He listens intently, aware that his role in this moment is not to fix, but to be present. Their eyes meet occasionally, and he allows himself to linger on the quiet steadiness in her gaze, confident yet tinged with a trace of hesitancy. When she pauses, he instinctively reaches for her hand, brushing his fingers lightly over hers, careful not to startle, careful to communicate that he is fully attentive. She doesn't pull away. Instead, she shifts slightly, leaning closer in subtle acknowledgement, her shoulder brushing against his. The warmth of her presence fills the space between them, steady and grounding. There is a delicate rhythm to this scene, words, silences, gestures, and glances all weave together to create intimacy without overt declarations. He becomes attuned to the nuances of her expression, the way her lips press together when uncertain, the soft exhale of relief when she feels understood. Each small physical cue, a hand resting lightly on the table near his, a brush of her hair behind her ear, amplifies the emotional significance of the moment. Internally, the narrator feels a mixture of awe, empathy, and quiet longing. He's drawn not only to her elegance and poise but also to the honesty she's allowing him to witness. In turn, she seems reassured by his careful attention, by the way he mirrors her emotional openness with gentle gestures of support. There's a growing awareness that their connection is more than routine. It is evolving into something emotionally profound, built on trust, shared vulnerabilities, and subtle, tactile reassurance. By the end of this part, the audience should feel that a critical shift has occurred. The relationship is no longer just convenience or proximity. Emotional intimacy has begun to bloom, facilitated by gestures that are gentle yet profoundly meaningful, hands touching, shoulders brushing, eyes meeting and understanding. The stage is now set for deeper tension and the slow recognition of romantic attraction, grounded in mutual trust and the quiet power of shared vulnerability. By this stage, the young male narrator, 24, and the woman, 42, have grown comfortable in each other's presence. Familiarity has become a quiet anchor, and emotional vulnerability has begun to blossom into subtle, unspoken attraction. Yet both are acutely aware of the complications, the age gap, societal expectations, and the uncertainty of crossing boundaries in a relationship that began unexpectedly. This part centers on the tension of desire held in check, simmering beneath gestures, glances, and touches. The setting is intimate, everyday, yet charged with emotional weight. Perhaps they are preparing a meal together in her kitchen, folding laundry side by side, or organizing books in her study. The proximity is natural, but every small movement now carries additional resonance. When he reaches for a bowl she's holding, their fingers brush, lingering a fraction longer than necessary. Neither pulls away immediately. His pulse quickens, she feels it too, a quiet acknowledgement of their growing connection, spoken without words. Small, sensory moments of affection highlight the tension. She tucks a loose strand of hair behind her ear near him, and he notices the warmth of her neck and the soft scent of her perfume. His hand lingers momentarily on a surface she has just touched, and the memory of the warmth remains. Eyes meet more frequently now, and in those glances, there is unspoken communication, curiosity, attraction, hesitation, and the fragile hope of mutual understanding. Even mundane tasks, stirring a pot, passing utensils, or adjusting a cushion, become opportunities for closeness. Internally, both wrestle with conflicting emotions. He admires her grace, maturity, and quiet strength, but is painfully aware of how unconventional their connection might appear to others. She, in turn, feels the pull of desire, but tempers it with careful awareness of the potential risks, both emotional and social. Their interactions are therefore measured yet charged. Hesitation itself becomes part of the intimacy. Words are scarce but significant. Casual comments carry layered meanings. "Careful, it's hot," she says as he reaches for a mug, and he hears more than a warning, a tone of care, of attention, of concern. He responds with a soft smile, their eyes locking for a heartbeat, the silence between them speaking volumes. These small exchanges deepen the emotional resonance without requiring overt declarations, allowing the audience to feel the slow burn of desire building naturally. By the end of this part, the audience should sense the emotional apex of subtle tension. Physical closeness, fleeting touches, lingering glances, and the unspoken recognition of desire create a charged atmosphere. They are both drawn to each other yet restrained by awareness and hesitation, setting the stage for the eventual emotional climax. The relationship has moved beyond familiarity and trust into a realm where affection and attraction are acknowledged internally but remain delicately unspoken, heightening the anticipation for the next stage of connection. By this stage, the young male narrator, 24, and the woman, 42, have been living in a delicate rhythm of quiet routines, shared vulnerabilities, and subtle tension. The emotional undercurrent between them has been building steadily, each glance, brush of the hand, and lingering proximity amplifying feelings neither dared to name. This part brings those unspoken emotions to the forefront, creating a moment of heartfelt honesty that defines the turning point of their connection. The setting is intimate and evocative, perhaps a rainy evening with soft light spilling through the window, or a quiet night in her living room with the warm glow of a single lamp. They might be cooking together, sitting on the couch, or sharing a small, quiet meal. The atmosphere is calm, almost suspended in time, allowing space for reflection and emotional candor. The moment begins with subtle gestures that convey emotional readiness. Their hands brush, linger, and finally meet fully, fingers intertwining naturally. He feels the warmth of her hand, the gentle firmness that mirrors her quiet strength. She rests her head momentarily on his shoulder, just long enough for him to sense the steady rhythm of her heartbeat. The tactile closeness conveys comfort, trust, and longing, emotions too complex to be fully articulated but undeniable in their presence. Their conversation, when it begins, is soft, deliberate, and honest. Words flow not as declarations of desire, but as expressions of vulnerability. He confesses his admiration for her strength and warmth. She admits the quiet comfort his presence has brought into her life. There is no rush, no pressure. Every pause is weighted with meaning, every glance laden with the acknowledgement of mutual understanding. The emotional intensity emerges from the combination of physical closeness and heartfelt dialogue, each amplifying the other. Throughout the scene, sensory details deepen the intimacy. He notices the subtle scent of her hair as it brushes his cheek, the faint warmth radiating from her body, the delicate tension in her hands as they linger in his. She notices the sincerity in his gaze, the way his shoulder leans slightly toward hers, the gentle steadiness of his breathing. These details, small yet profoundly affecting, allow the audience to feel the emotional depth of the moment without the need for overt romantic or sexual content. Internally, both wrestle with hesitation and the thrill of connection. The age gap and social expectations remain present in their thoughts, but they are overshadowed by the undeniable pull of their bond. They recognize, silently and together, that their connection has grown beyond routine or circumstance. It has become a meaningful, emotionally resonant relationship built on trust, vulnerability, and mutual respect. By the end of this part, the audience should feel the culmination of the slow-burn tension. Emotional walls have been lowered, and the couple stands at the threshold of a new intimacy. Their touches, shared glances, and quiet words create a moment of profound connection, setting the stage for a warm, satisfying resolution that honors both the emotional journey and the subtle, YouTube-safe romance that has been meticulously developed throughout the story. Following the emotional climax, the young male narrator, 24, and the woman, 42, step into a new rhythm of connection. The tension that had simmered between them now softens into a gentle, steady intimacy. Their bond is no longer tentative or fraught with uncertainty. It has matured into a comforting, mutual understanding, a space where vulnerability and warmth coexist effortlessly. The setting reflects this newfound stability. A sunlit morning in her kitchen, the soft hum of everyday life, or a peaceful evening by the window with the golden glow of sunset filtering in. The world feels calm, ordinary, and yet every shared glance, every brush of skin carries the weight of their journey. The narrator notices the familiar warmth of her presence, the way the soft sunlight catches the highlights in her hair, and the subtle, inviting curve of her smile as she looks at him. Physical gestures continue to anchor their connection in subtle, meaningful ways. Fingers intertwine naturally as they move together around the kitchen, or his hand brushes hers as they reach for the same object. Occasionally, she rests her head lightly on his shoulder while reading or sitting quietly, and he feels the reassuring rhythm of her breathing. These touches are gentle, everyday, and intimate, markers of a deep emotional bond rather than overt romance. The tactile closeness carries a sense of security, trust, and quiet joy. Their conversations, too, reflect the evolution of their relationship. They speak freely about dreams, small frustrations, or mundane matters, knowing that honesty and mutual respect form the foundation of their connection. Humor and light teasing weave naturally into these interactions, creating moments of warmth and shared laughter that reinforce emotional intimacy. The narrator observes, with a mix of gratitude and wonder, how effortless their connection has become, how natural it feels to be present in her life. Internally, both characters experience a sense of peace and fulfillment. The initial uncertainties, the age gap, societal perceptions, personal hesitation, have not disappeared entirely, but they no longer dominate. Instead, they are tempered by mutual respect, genuine care, and the quiet pleasure of shared life. The audience should sense that the relationship is sustainable, grounded in emotional maturity and steady affection rather than fleeting infatuation. The story closes with a simple yet poignant scene that encapsulates their bond. Perhaps they are walking side by side in a park, sharing a comfortable silence, or enjoying a quiet evening at home with fingers brushing and soft smiles exchanged. A lingering glance, a gentle hand squeeze, or the quiet warmth of her head resting on his shoulder leaves the audience with a sense of emotional completeness. This is a relationship built slowly, deliberately, and meaningfully, one that resonates with authenticity and warmth. By the end of this part, the audience should feel a deep satisfaction. The slow burn journey has reached its emotional destination. The connection between the narrator and the woman is secure, tender, and fully realized, leaving a lingering sense of comfort, intimacy, and hope. The story concludes with a quiet affirmation that love, trust, and understanding can flourish gently, even across unexpected beginnings and age differences.